Okay, you guys. So I'm Insiya, and I wanted to actually talk to you guys today a little bit more about what doctors can do in clinical research, rather than just the practical aspect. Obviously, when you do get your degree, you don't have to just go into the field and be like a practical doctor. You can always go into research. You can always go in. And what I wanted to focus on specifically in this was things like animal testing, so drug development. So what can a doctor specifically do in that area? So I wanted to actually show you guys first a little bit that I found here. The ultimate guide to a career in pharma as a doctor. Now there's also an NHS website which also does outline what you can do with a medicine degree in clinical research. But this is really nice because it does outline the main sort of aspects. Like you can go into research, pharmacology. You can work in medicine safety, things like toxicology, and then obviously what I'm going to be talking about today, which is drug testing. So, now, who here agrees with animal testing? It's a nice little game I like to do every once in a while. Okay, hands up if you are against animal testing. Come on, hands up, who's against animal testing? Yeah, that's a large portion of you. Now, nobody really likes animal testing. It's all just, they'll have they're all incredibly negative, you get on the media often. And like, you don't really get the true image of animal testing. It doesn't, because I think there's so much hate in the media that people often do get a little bit afraid to stand up and say the actual facts instead of just what we perceive. So now a fun little game is take a guess which of these following brands sell products, test their products before selling.
It's not the body. It's
I don't know.
No, the body shop doesn't.
Oh, okay, then
I think that's
Wait, is it just one or are there multiple? You can pick. Okay, do you want? Who knows? I'm not going to say away. Okay. Yeah. The answer is none of them.
Wow.
It's actually been illegal to test cosmetics since 1998, and household products haven't been allowed to test in the UK since 2011. Since 2011 informally and 2015 legally. So it's actually common misconception. So now some people do kind of say that there are arguments against animal testing, such as they're not similar to humans in any way, shape, or form. How are you going to be able to translate that into a drug that works for humans if it works on an animal? And now these are some quotes that you can see up here. For example, animals don't get many of the diseases that we do. And the history of cancer research has been the history of curing cancer in the mouse. And we have cured the cancer of mice, but it didn't work in human beings. Now, I wanted to get into some of the main arguments for and against animal testing. So the first main one is that animals are incredibly different, and so the drugs tested on animals aren't as effective on humans, and therefore it's a waste. Now, while this may be partially true, there are actually a lot more similarities between humans and animals than you may think. For example, the main organs and organ systems that we share with them, we all have a heart, we all have kidneys, we all have livers, we all do have brains, essentially. And we have been able to find out quite a lot of key information that has allowed us to progress through this. Now, the main case study is the Elephant Men of 2006. And this one was a drug that was tested on these young healthy men, and they ended up having to amputate limbs because it got to that point. It got so bad, and the drug had such an adverse reaction. But what we actually found out was that it wasn't a problem necessarily in the drug itself. It was a problem in the dosage. Now that comes under toxicology and dosage testing. So it could have been useful if it had been a little bit more further investigated. But obviously that's why we do end up holding these clinical trials. Now some people there is that's what I was talking about. So there are also other upsides to this. Even if it has failed, one key point everybody I've spoken to forgets is that everything that fails in humans but has worked in animals can be used in veterinary medicine. So it isn't just like a total loss, a total failure if something that has worked in animals still hasn't been gone and worked in humans. We still have discovered something. But that's not what I want to talk to you guys about today. The main difference is, the main thing I want to get to, I'm going to skip through most of these slides quickly because I want to get to the scientific advancements and replacements that we could potentially have in animal testing. But it is incredibly difficult to get a license to test in the UK as well. That's important to note. Some people think that, oh, it's just, you can get any animal and just test it basically. But it is really heavily regulated in the UK. There are certain things that you have to do, and you have to prove that you've done the 3 R's. You need to prove that you've reduced the number of as many animals as possible, that you've replaced animals that have that are more responsive and more aware of the environment around them with animals that are less aware of the environment around them. For example, if you switched out lab rats or something like insects. And you need to prove that you've refined the experiment to cause as minimal suffering as possible. If you haven't proved extensively that you have done these 3, then there is no way you can get a license to test in the UK. So there are incredible, and there are bodies that do check this, and it is hard. And in terms of pain, only 81% of all procedures are sub-threshold and mild procedures. So things like pain when you would be getting a vaccination. So it's not loads and loads of things that the animals are put in every single day, and that's one of the main arguments people have, oh, it's cruel, they're in pain. It's not. They're not really. Some of them may be, but it's a lot less. And people think that to do animal testing, you've got to be cruel to animals, but on the contrary, you've got to love them. Because if you don't love the animals, then you won't be able to prove it in detail enough, extensively enough, that you have tried reducing all suffering possible, which, as previously mentioned, is one of the only ways you can actually get a license to test. And some people do believe that animal testing is covered up in the UK, but it's actually a legal requirement that bodies that do animal testing, they need to have it stated clearly on their website. So it is open to the public. Like, I was surprised by how openly you can find different procedures that have been done. It's all just there as long as you can just go and Google it. Now, these are the commitments of the Concord Act of Openness. We will be clear about when and how and why we use animals in research. And as you can see all the way going down, then it goes, we will report on progress and annually share our experiences. So at the end of the year, everyone does have to submit a report, and then there is a company that kind of ranks the best to the worst, so it kind of also puts pressure on the companies that they're not at the bottom of the list, like that they're not at the bottom list in terms of like how well have you prioritized animal welfare. So here's the exciting bit that you guys all want to know about. We are so technologically advanced that we no longer need animal testing. Now, we kind of yes, because we do have these incredible inventions now. We have organ chips, which which mimic human organs literally on a chip. So you can get things like liver on a chip, and they have fluid inside of them, which mimics the cell tissue inside these organs. And you can also test multiple different drugs on the same chip. And it's much cheaper, and you can transport it, and then obviously you don't have to meet its needs because it's not an animal and it doesn't have any needs that it needs to be met. So it's much easier to use. And then also you have reconstituted human skin, which is another incredible invention. It's lab-grown human skin, basically. And you can use that to test irritants instead of testing them on animals. However, organ chips, they have a lateral flow. All the liquid inside of the chip, it all flows laterally at the intersections. And therefore, when you do put a drug in it, it might not necessarily mix well throughout the whole way. And also, it's important to note that as a whole organism, your body organs, they don't work in isolation. Your body organs all work together. It's a system. Everything's communicating with everything else. There's no way that you can investigate the effects on a whole organism just by testing on one single organ. So that's why one of the main ways that we haven't been able to do erase animal testing, one of the main reasons is because there is simply no way to test drugs on a whole organism yet. There's just no way that we have to do it right now. And that's why we will be needing animals, hopefully not for much longer, if we do end up coming with new biotechnologies. But currently there is no way to get around the fact that we do need a whole organism to be tested on. There's also the monocyte activation test, which is a really neat little thing. So in rabbits, what they usually do is something called pyrogen testing, and pyrogens basically it imitates it's what produces fever in the human body. So what they will do is that they'll inject these rabbits with a bacteria or a virus that produces pyrogens, and they'll test their drugs on the rabbits to see if the pyrogen count has gone down, if their temperature has gone down. Whereas, one of the downsides of that is that it doesn't mimic the human immune system. So now the monocyte activation test does. This one mimics the immune system, and it's much more accurate. Now the way that it works is that you have your petri dish, and inside of it you'll put your drug, and you'll have your monocyte. Your monocyte, when it comes in contact with pyrogens, then it will produce cytokines and interleukins, which are basically, you'll learn about them more a little bit later on in year 12. But they're key things that are released in the human immune response, and they do go on to produce pyrogens, which produce fever. Now the pyrogens are what activates the monocytes. Now we can count the number of monocytes that have been activated. So if the drug that you've tested with that petri dish and whatever bacteria and virus you're using, if less monocytes have been activated, then you know the drug is working. If more have been activated, or if it's relatively the same number of monocytes that have activated previously, then you know that the drug is ineffective. And this is obviously much more accurate to use, and then it kind of eliminates any suffering the rabbit would have gone through. And that's really incredible, to think that we've come that far. However, there are certain reasons that we can't fully replace animals, and one I mentioned before, we can't test on a whole organism. And secondly, because genetic research, it's it's incredibly immoral to do genetic research on a human, because there are laws that obviously prevent things like this, but you can in animals. And also, some people, crazy as it is, do suggest that we can be testing on prisoners. Now this wouldn't exactly work, because there are laws preventing this. There are laws that say that you have to test on an animal before you can move on to testing in humans. And then also, with an animal, you can control its background. You can control the things that it's eaten. You can control what it's been exposed to. With prisoners, they could be previous smokers. You don't know how fit and healthy they are. You don't know if they've had any diseases in the past and how they've affected whatever investigation they're going to be doing. They might not always be honest about substance abuse and what they might have taken. There are multiple different factors that you just simply can't control in humans, but you can in animals. And that's also where one of the difficulties does arise. And other than the fact that it's just immoral, that's about it. The issue is cells in a petri dish lack the overall organ structure, in which some diseases can be super important, and 3D printed organs lack the interactions that happen with other organs. All our organs communicate with one another, and that, I think, really summarizes one of the key reasons that we just simply cannot remove animal testing from our laboratories. And animal testing, some people would say, oh, it's gotten us nowhere, what has it even done? But it has. It's gotten us incredibly far so far than we have done. For example, the germ theory of disease, the first transplant, blood transfusion, and kidney dialysis, which is incredibly useful, as you know, it has managed to save many lives to date. So I hope hearing this that you guys have considered and have have opened up your eyes a little bit, that going in and like working in like hospitals and working in clinics isn't the only thing you can do with your medicine degree. It's incredibly versatile, it's incredibly diverse. You can do many things with a medicine degree. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new. Thank you very much.